This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, our weekend show is all about the two of us each nominating what we think is the biggest story of the week, the most remarkable story, the sleeper story, one that's maybe not getting the attention that we think it deserves, and then our favourite story. We each obviously pick one, and then we need a judge to make a decision and decide a winner, and every week that judge is our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Michael.
Let's jump straight in, shall we? Because it's big stories this week, and
Yes.
I got in early and nabbed the biggest. So you can go first, Sean, with the second biggest. Go for it.
Well, surprise, surprise, economy and financial markets again. A little bit Groundhog Day here. This week we found out that Australia and the US are close to ending their respective rounds of interest rate increases. Starting locally, the Reserve Bank said it will consider pausing further interest rate hikes when it meets in less than 2 weeks. After 10 consecutive interest rate hikes in 10 board meetings, it'll be nice to get a bit of a break. It's clear the central bank thinks it might be time to pause and have a look around, see what's going on. Now, the minutes for the March 7 board meeting show that if the economy shows any signs of softening, the Reserve Bank will consider pausing. That's what they said 2 weeks ago. But since then, we've had the failure of US-based Silicon Valley Bank, the failure of Signature Bank in the US, the rescue of Credit Suisse by rival UBS, plenty going on. Then this week, the US Federal Reserve came out. It lifted rates by 25 basis points to a 15-year high, but it also signalled that the central bank was thinking differently about future rises. The phrase ongoing rate increases was no longer in the communique released with the increase. Now, Fed Chair Jerome Powell actually pointed that out. He said a tightening in credit conditions as a result of what's happening in the US banking system could substitute for rate increases. This was the week, Adam, when the two central banks that matter most to us indicated they were coming to the end of the incredible series of rate hikes that we've had over the past 12 months.
I love the fact that you had to drop Adam's name in 2 sentences from the end just to wake him up.
I am here, you know.
I'm assuming that was the purpose of that.
See, the difference between me and Adam and you, Michael, is we understand what a big story that is. Adam would have been hanging off every single word.
Of course I was.
Do you take a lot of notes, Adam, while we're going? Because I know that we've seen your scorecard, but I always assume that that's just like a cut down version of what you're actually doing, and there are just reams of documents that you were just scribbling away.
Reams of mental notes, but only very few notes on paper.
I've actually been offended in the past sometimes when I see your notes that you send through. I'm like, I made a really good point, and Adam didn't write it down.
Oh, I might add a little extra to today's notes just to see how that goes.
All right, well, I'm just going to jump into my biggest story this week. And for me, it was the very, very, very big week in politics.
How big was it, Michael?
It was very big. So the most significant event of the week politically by far was the release of the wording for the referendum expected in October. And if approved, the Constitution will be changed to establish an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice to Parliament. Anthony Albanese actually got quite emotional as he was announcing the wording of the referendum because he's kind of feeling the weight of responsibility over it. And this is going to be the big political issue of the next 6 months. And there's the risk that it will become quite divisive, particularly if there isn't bipartisan support. So that was one very big political story this week. The other big story in federal politics this week was the drama over the government's safeguard mechanism legislation. That's the mechanism that would mandate emissions reductions for the 215 biggest carbon emitters in the country. The coalition isn't a fan. The Greens don't like the fact that new coal and gas mines can still open, and even business leaders like Andrew Forrest say that companies being allowed to buy unlimited carbon credits doesn't really do enough to reduce pollution. And if the legislation doesn't pass, the government says that the 43% emissions reductions target by 2030 won't actually be met. So clearly, this is hugely significant. The events in Canberra are the biggest story of the week by far because of the political and the economic impacts as well. And just to add in just a little extra little bonus, I suppose. for you, Adam. State politics as well. New South Wales has an election this weekend. Biggest population.
Just sounding desperate at this point. Go on.
Biggest population, biggest contribution to the economy. Depending on when you're listening to this, there could be a new government or there could be a returned Perrottet government. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that by adding in just a little bit more at the end, this whole story is now unbeatable because of its economic and political importance. Adam.
Did you just declare yourself the winner?
I believe so.
I laid the facts out for you, and I'm just giving you a tick box. All you have to do is go, yep, I agree with Michael's assessment, 1-0.
So Sean wins this one, and it's close, but the economic impact of finally, as we've been talking about for so long, the horizon on when these interest rates will stop rising. Everyone, I think, is hoping and maybe even starting to breathe a little easier because of it. And the economic impact around the world is enormous, including in Australia. On the political side, they're all massive. The referendum of the Indigenous voice to Parliament, green energy, very important for the evolution of our country, incredibly important. So,
what do you reckon the Libs will do, Adam? Where do you think they'll come down on the side of yes or no?
Oh, gee, I hope it's yes. I really do. I think for so many reasons. I think strategically, where's the merit in blocking it, and saying no? I don't get that from their point of view. And I think it deserves unilateral support.
Michael, do you reckon the Libs will come a yes or no?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think they can say no.
Yeah, what's the benefit in it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it makes Dutton, because Dutton, of course, walked out on the apology, and this ruins him forever, quite apart from the merits of it. And he has every right to put forward arguments, asking for more detail on that. So,
or alternatives.
And people have every right to vote whichever the way they want. But I think it's be very difficult for the Liberals to come out and say no.
I agree with that.
I think in all that, Michael, 1-0.
Yeah, look, I do kind of think it's odd that we spend so much time then discussing what is apparently the second biggest story of the week.
Always gracious.
Only after the judge had made his recommendation.
Oh, yes. I decided this week, I thought, you know what, going into this, just be gracious. Just be a really good winner.
How long did that last?
Well, I didn't win, so all bets are off, right? So let's move on to most remarkable story. May I go first on this one, please?
Please.
Well, for me, I shouldn't laugh about this because it's actually really serious, but most remarkable is, for me, just a case of terrible, terrible timing. This week we had the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warning that countries like Australia will need to make deep, rapid and sustained reductions in greenhouse gas emissions if global warming is going to be kept to 1.5 degrees. Look, we have heard this before, but they've kind of really reiterated the point this week in this new report, basically saying that, yes, the commitments have been made, work is being done, but a heck of a lot more work is needed. And because emissions have continued to rise in recent years, the challenge is even harder than it kind of ever was before. So we're going to need to do a whole lot more. On the same day, this is what I find just so remarkable. Australian coal miner New Hope declared that it will be able to double coal production over the next 6 years. The company said it was encouraged by the need for energy security, and it had 2 new mines set to deliver their first coal in the next 12 months. Coal production from existing assets is expected to rise from 7.9 million tonnes last year to more than 14 million tonnes in 2026. Now, I'm not a climate expert.
Oh, don't play yourself down, Michael. Don't play yourself down.
But I don't think that this is really what the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change had in mind when they called for more action. and to all happen on the same day is just remarkably awkward timing. So for me, it is the most remarkable story of the week.
Can you imagine the poor public relations person?
At New Hope.
Is there anything going on the 22nd? No, I don't think so. No, maybe. No, we should be okay that day. All clear. And they wake up and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has come out. Ouch.
Well, yeah. That is a brutal, brutal thing to happen. And it's just like, you couldn't script this, could you? It's just It is just really, really awkward timing. And I think we can agree it is remarkable, the most remarkable.
I agree it's remarkable, but not quite as remarkable as Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates coming out saying OpenAI's language generation artificial intelligence tools, or that ChatGPT stuff we've been talking about, is one of the two biggest technology jumps he's seen in his lifetime. That is remarkable. No one is better placed, arguably, than Bill Gates to make the claim that we have now had a revolutionary jump in technology. He says the promise of the new technology is the most important advance in technology since the graphical user interface. Now, that allows people to more easily interact with computers using icons, menus, and windows. It's basically what modern operating systems are built on. In his blog this week, he says the development of AI is as fundamental as the creation of the microprocessor, the personal computer, the internet, and the mobile phone. It will change the way people work, learn, travel, get healthcare, and communicate with each other. Entire industries will reorient around it. Businesses will distinguish themselves by how well they use it. Now, obviously, OpenAI is partially backed by Microsoft, but still remarkable that Bill Gates came out this week and said this is the future. Easily more remarkable than yours, Michael. What was yours about? I've forgotten now. Something about climate change or something like that.
Oh, goodness me. It appears we're setting a fairly low bar, really, for sportsmanship this week, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's just we're only in March as well. Can you imagine how awful this is going to be by November? We'll just open just with personal sledges.
Bare knuckle fist fights.
Yeah. Adam.
Right. So Michael wins this one. The remarkability factor is, of course, a reference to my criteria of topicality, timeliness, economic impact, and my own subjective bias. So
I presume this is all about the own subjective bias because there is no way in the world that Michael wins on the other three.
Well, let's see. So the timing of those two announcements and at polar opposites of the spectrum, really, in terms of the energy transition was just incredible. Now, Bill Gates, yeah, sure, making a statement. He's important and he is obviously a master in his industry and craft. But he's talking about things that have already happened. So we know that OpenAI's ChatGPT has been going for a while now, and a new iteration came out a couple of months ago. It is incredible, but those things have already happened. So making a statement this week, I don't think is that remarkable, and not in comparison to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and New Hope's opposite announcements. So that is news and newsworthy this week, and I think more remarkable. But clearly, you've really accepted that well, Sean. So thank you.
No, clearly, obviously.
I thought it was a great judgment. Well done, Adam. Thank you for your. I just thought, you know what? I'll just sit back and just let Sean kind of
skewer himself.
Skewer himself, yes. But no, look, I'm not going to interfere, not going to intervene here. I thought it was a good decision. We will. What have we won all? We'll come back in a moment with the sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we're looking for the sleeper story of the week. So this is a story that's maybe not getting the attention that it deserves, or is going to be a bigger story down the track. This is the one I always struggle with, so I'm not really looking forward to it, if I'm brutally honest. Who goes first here?
Well, I'm actually thinking about withdrawing from the competition after that last judgment.
Taking his bat and his ball.
That's exactly right.
We've never had somebody just forfeit mid-episode.
I'm tempted, I got to say.
God, that would make some news, wouldn't it? I mean, obviously not
much.
Not much.
A microphone drop and walkout by Sean Aylmer.
Oh, scandalous. So does that mean that you're not participating this round, or will you actually just...
That competitive spirit is too much for me. I'm going to go first, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Sleeper story. There are a couple of stories around the housing market this week that just didn't get much attention but are very, very important. Firstly, there were signs that the Sydney housing market has stabilised, with nearly 74% of homes taken to auction over the weekend selling. Now, Sydney housing prices stabilising isn't what I'm saying. It's what CoreLogic Research Director Tim Lawless said. He said it's too early to call a recovery, But the persistently low level of stocks and rising demand may have started to tilt the market in favour of sellers. Melbourne's preliminary clearance rate was also up to nearly 69%. Brisbane was at 56%, which is actually very good for that city. Adelaide, 63%, not so good for that city. And Canberra at 57.5%. Then later in the week came new analysis by the Australian Bankers Association that shows that 70% of bank customers whose fixed rate mortgages expired in the past 6 months refinanced with another lender. On average, 2,370 people are refinancing their mortgage every working day. And of the 309,000 mortgages refinanced over the past 6 months, only 94,000 did so with their existing lender. This is important. It suggests the mortgage cliff we've been talking about might be more of a slope. People will have to pay higher rates, but they're shopping around to get the best deals. The gap won't be as much as we first thought. It may be that we're nowhere near the calamity that's being made out around the housing market, and that will support house prices. What's happening in the housing market underneath the headlines is absolutely fascinating and a real sleeper story. Michael.
That's a good story, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
Wrong category, but it's a good story.
Generous of you.
Sleeper story. My story is a bit of a light sleeper, if you will. Adam, did you like that? Anyway, apparently not. But that one won't be appearing on the scorecard. It's a light-ish sleeper story because not many people will have seen it or heard it, but I still think it's really interesting. And it's the research from LinkedIn that says 2/3 of people working from home don't think that they're hurting their careers by doing so. But at the same time, you get around 50% of people saying they feel they need to overcompensate to show that they are serious about work. And interesting that people are more open to going back into the office now than they were a year ago. 1/3 of workers are going in for 3 days, a bit less than that, going in for 2 days. Now, the part that I don't get, people want to go back into the office for social interactions. I don't get that. They also want more efficient face-to-face meetings. How efficient can a face-to-face meeting be when you've spent an hour in the car or on a train or a bus to get there? I have my doubts.
You are a wonderful work colleague, Michael. Would you agree, Adam? The fact that he has no interest in meeting us?
Oh, no, I enjoy our social interactions, but it wouldn't be the reason that I go into the office. It would be why I would like to see you socially, not just because of the office. Anyway.
But you never see me socially. I ask you out. I say, hey, let's go do something. Let's grab a beer after work. Got to write a book.
The other part of the research
Got a movie script, you know.
The other part of the research is about loud
Sales
leaving.
are going well.
The trend where managers announce that they're going home or they're going to the gym or going to pick up their kids, and it makes it then easier for staff to do the same thing when the boss sets an example of leaving at a reasonable time. Now, this one I do like that one, and not that I think LinkedIn really cares about my judgment over their article. Anyway, look, I thought it was all interesting research, highlight some of the trends in the post-COVID office, not getting the attention that it deserves. Probably haven't sold it as well as I probably should have.
Okay. I'm really torn on this one. So
before you actually make your decision in my favour, how can you possibly think Michael's story is even close to my story?
You're offended that I'm torn.
Absolutely offended that you're torn.
But no, that's...
Yeah, hang on. I won by daylight, and I want you to tell me.
That's right.
No, I think that this is a classic case of Sean miscategorizing a story. That he's kind of run out of other categories, so he's just gone, I'll take this story that probably actually should be most remarkable, or in different circumstances, the biggest story of the week, and I'll just try and...
I want to abuse the judge before he actually awarded me.
And you've both done that.
Oh no, I'm not abusing you at all, Adam. I'm abusing Sean.
Let's get this right.
I have class. I would never attack the judge. Just Sean's ridiculous decisions. Please go on, Adam. You have the floor.
Sean wins.
Well, that's rubbish. Just kidding. I agree with your decision.
The property market is so important to our economy, to so many people, and that it might be changing for the better. I think so much of consumption is based on how well we feel we're going, and property is so important as a contributor to that. So I really hope it's right, and I think it is a great sleeper story. The LinkedIn research is very interesting. I did quite like the anecdote about Loud leaving. It's quite amusing. But no, I'm sorry, it can't win this week.
Okay.
On to favourite story, Michael.
Yeah, no. Yes, let's move on, shall we?
Let's move on. We know the score's 2-1. Let's just move on.
Yeah, and you're right. We shouldn't ask questions about why your story was a sleeper story, how the housing market could possibly be in that category. I agree. Let's ignore that elephant in the room and move on. Favourite story of the week. Am I going first on this one? No.
Yes, you go first.
Okay. Favourite story. This was an absolute cracker.
Oh, there we go. Good start.
I don't know about this attitude, Sean. It's just
Michael's having to reset himself, isn't he?
Look, I take the categorization of stories very seriously. And in the past, I've been criticized for putting sleeper stories that aren't sleeper stories. And Sean's just done the exact same thing. And you have just worshipped the economic importance and significance of the story. So I'm reeling from that.
You are starting to sound a lot like me, and that's not very good. That's not very nice.
There's only room for one, Sean.
Only one sore loser.
Oh, no. I'm okay. Favorite story. So
Yeah.
this story, if I can get through it without too many interjections from you, Sean, it's a ripper of a story. It was a cracker before, it's now a ripper. I have a theory.
Oh, God.
And that theory is that the most scandalous of all the metals, even more scandalous than gold, is nickel. There are two reasons for this.
Yes, go on.
About a year ago, we had that bizarre event on the London Metals Exchange where a short position taken by a Chinese tycoon saw nickel prices spike. And so they soared to $100,000 a ton when it's normally closer to kind of 20,000. The situation deteriorated at that time to the point that the LME actually had to step in and cancel nearly $4 billion in trades. Fast forward 12 months and we have another scandal. Again, surprise, surprise, with nickel at the London Metals Exchange. I'm seeing a bit of a trend emerging here where we had JP Morgan buying $2 million worth of nickel. That nickel turned out not to be nickel, but just ordinary stones or rocks or something other than nickel. And so the LME cancelled 9 nickel contracts after discovering irregularities at a warehouse. So it led me to that conclusion that nickel is, in fact, the most scandalous of all of the metals. But it also got me thinking about the times that people have tried to pass things off as something else. My two favorites. A zoo in Egypt that had a zebra on display. The zebra was, in fact, a painted donkey, and the paint melted in the heat. And the pictures of it it's actually quite sad because there's just this forlorn-looking donkey with black and white paint running down his face. And then there was a zoo in China. I know there's a zoo theme emerging here as well. There was a zoo in China that had an African lion that was barking at visitors to the zoo. It was in fact just a very hairy dog and not a lion. So I think the nickel that turned out to be ordinary stones should be up there with the painted donkey and the hairy dog on the list of the top fakes of all time. And that is my favourite story. Thank you.
Okay, my favourite story was all about coffee. Did you know there are about 2 billion cups of coffee are drunk every day? That's the estimate. And the number is growing very, very fast thanks to China. And Starbucks is trying to take over China. It plans to open a store in China every 9 hours to reach 9,000 by 2025. Every 9 hours, a new Starbucks appears. Oh, the pain. Starbucks currently has about 6,000 locations. It's got a very famous chief executive, a guy called Howard Schultz. He started Starbucks in Seattle. He left. The company went backwards a bit and he's come back. He's about to leave again, but he wants one last crack at the world's fastest growing large coffee market. The Chinese are becoming addicted to coffee like many Western countries. In 2018, there were an estimated 22,000 coffee shops across the country. By 2020, there were 100,000. That would be far more today. It's a market probably 3 times the size of the US market, and Starbucks wants to be part of it. It's opening its first roasting plant in China. In fact, its first roasting plant in Asia. Plenty of competitors. Tim Hortons is one. Yum China is another one that's in partnership with Lavazza brand, the Italian chain. There's a very big chain called Luckin Coffee. But I wouldn't bet against Starbucks in China. They took over the US. I reckon they're going to take over China. Just a cracking story about a company moving into a new geography and trying to latch on to this incredible trend that is coffee drinking in China. How fascinating, Adam.
Yes, it is, Sean. It is absolutely fascinating. I'm afraid, though, for favourites, I have to give this one to Michael. The fake nickel and the London Metals Exchange is a ripper.
What do you think of the donkey?
I reckon you almost lost it off the donkey. I'm happy to concede on the London Metals Exchange, but then when you're bringing in donkeys and hairy dogs, I thought, ooh, he could have blown this.
Yeah, could have gone a bit wide.
No, it's context, it's colour, it's entertainment, Sean.
And very amusing. But I think in terms of a business news podcast, that's where it kind of went away a little bit.
I'm sorry, let me just check. Yep, zoos are businesses too. And sometimes in business you need to make decisions, and these businesses have clearly decided, you know what, that dog looks hairy enough to be a lion. Let's whack it in the exhibit.
Nevertheless, in terms of favourite story, I liked it too. So thank you very much. You win that one.
All right, so what are we, 2-2?
Yes, that does make it 2-2.
We go to the points.
Okay.
We're going to be here forever as Adam adds it up.
Michael, I haven't added it up yet. So Michael's in at 81 points.
What?
Oh, wow. We have been.
Did you say 81 points?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. 91 points.
Yeah, he didn't carry the one.
I didn't. 91 points. Oh, my God. It's dead heat. Sean has come in at 91 points as well. So even on the story count, even on the scorecard.
If only I'd found a third fake animal, it could have tipped me over the edge.
Oh my! Do you know the story of London Bridge in America?
No.
Okay, so I was driving across America with a mate of mine in 1992. Arizona bought Lake Havasu in Arizona bought the London Bridge. They thought they were getting the Tower Bridge, you know, the really ornate one on the Thames, but they were getting one just down a bit, which is quite a plain stone bridge. So they bought London Bridge, but ended up with the wrong one in Lake Havasu in Arizona.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So I could have just included a fake bridge.
You could.
And you would have won it because Adam in 1992 was driving across it with a mate.
Oh, okay. You know what? Next week, I'm going to look for anything that's got a link to the US in 1992.
You know the weird thing about that, Adam, is in 1992, I drove across America too with mates.
No way.
Yeah, seriously.
Which way did you go?
We went west to east.
Okay.
And we actually went down to the south and then up the east coast. So we took about 6 months to do it.
Same.
Interesting.
Wow.
In 1992, I was 6.
I was on the Highway 1, started in San Francisco, down the west coast, crossed the southern states and up the east.
God, we probably passed each other on one of those
We might
freeways.
have done.
Stuck our fingers up or something.
Oh, hello.
Fellow Australian.
Oh, let's get out of here.
Dead heat. That's our first dead heat for the year.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Hey, everyone's a winner in this.
Good contest.
Everyone is a winner except for sportsmanship. I'm pretty sure that lost out in the first round. All right. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson. Have a great weekend.